I talk a lot to youth, especially about what I call goal achievement. The bottom line is, a lot of people, they come to me and what do they want? They want to be a black belt, right? And that's very prestigious. A black belt is basically a martial arts expert, right? And so some people come to me and they're thinking they're going to get this black belt in a year and they've got a rude awakening, right? It's going to be hard work, right? But I think a lot of us have bigger goals and then we get discouraged along the way because it's a long-term project. And so in our case, let's say the example is becoming a black belt, right? Well, we have belt ranking systems. You're going through other levels to achieve that black belt. And by learning to use, bite-sized goals, so to speak, it's easier to achieve the bigger goal. And I try to always encourage that, whether I'm working with students who are trying to grow their business or something else. The bottom line is, if you want to achieve your grand goals in life, you have to start by setting up small goals that lead that direction. Otherwise, it's kind of like you don't have a target to shoot for, right? And so that's something that we kind of implement in terms of the philosophy of martial arts, is trying to teach you how to achieve your goals in a very progressive way, right? The first system is basically considered to be the striking or the boxing arts. And so that's when you use shock force trauma. So you hit the opponent physically, and that can use weapons like the edge of the hand. You strike with a blade, that's what we call a hand sword. You strike with the knuckles, we call that a back knuckle. You can punch, you can kick. And of course, those are all striking methods. You also have short range elbows, things like that. And so in terms of martial arts systems, karate is a Japanese term, okay? So karate is basically a Japanese-based martial art of striking. They use both the hands and the legs. For example, Taekwondo, which is actually pretty common in the Ozarks, there's a lot of Taekwondo schools. That's a Korean-based martial art. They prioritize pretty heavily on their kicking, and so that's just another unique style. But they're all basically striking systems, okay? Okay, now the second primary system would be considered grappling or wrestling. So in this case, that means not necessarily hitting your opponent, but manipulating their joints or throwing them around, right? So we usually tend to start with smaller joints. So if you take a hold of the hand, take a small finger and break that would be considered a lock, right? Again, of course, you got the wrist, we can heal that. You can also break the whole shoulder socket. And so those would be grappling methods, right? We also learn to do takedowns and throws, and we also learn to fall safely in that process. So that's for a key example here, right? Thanks for Praner, and I throw him to the ground. Watch what he does here. See how he slapped the ground and he breathed? Okay, that was a way that he learned to spread the shock so he didn't have to hurt his back, right? Okay, so you learn to fall safely, and you also learn to throw your partners, and that's a way that you grapple around, right? By taking the opponent down on the ground, it's a lot easier to combat them. I kind of do this both ways. You learn to defend against weaponry, but you also learn how to take the weapons, and you have to learn to retaliate with those too, because you should learn to respect what the weapon can do, right? So in this case, Mr. Praner has the club, and he's attacking me, right? If I can get out of the way, that'd be best, right? Okay, but notice this, if I get out of the way and he does that, right, I haven't really hurt him, so what might happen? He might come right back and hit me, right? Okay, so generally speaking, I actually prefer to either strike or grapple. Both of the systems work great, right? So let's do the overhead again, right? I'm here, I can grapple and put him in a lock so I can subdue him, right? Then later if I want to, I can take the club out and hit him with it, right? Or if I wanted to just strike him, let's say he did like a roundhouse swing, right? I might just go directly to striking him. I might just have him walk into a punch there and just fall up, right? Okay, so pretty much that would be like a striking art, karate, right? All right. And of course, I could be the one with the weapon. Could be my lucky day, right? He started to attack me and I grab something in my environment, comes in with a punch, what happens? Right, hit him with it, right? Okay, the mental arts, which means learning the concepts, the principles, the philosophies. That's really the mental training, right? And a lot of that just kind of stems from, when I teach, I like to use not only knowledge factors, but things like jokes and anecdotes and stories that link the lesson in and make an impression so that way it really kind of stays with you, right? And so I tend to use a lot of rhyming and things like that. So for example, when I'm trying to teach Mr. Praner how to shield his face with his palm, right? Okay, I would say something like, Mr. Praner's space and brace keeps the hand off the face, right? And that means he has to have space, which means room, but also brace, make it strong so he gets struck there, it won't collapse, right? Otherwise, what's gonna happen? He's gonna hit himself, right? So, as we do these lessons, this is like the mental part of the art, helping to reinforce the physical part of the art, right? When I teach my students, I teach them a variety of movement, right? Ranging from, being very lethal to being just a means of subduing and hindering their action, right? So for example, if Mr. Praner fired a punch my way, right? I could just break his arm in one move, and at that point, that would be very severe, and that would be instant, right? Okay. Now, if I wanted to be nice, right? I might just grab him and then take him down to the ground. And I just pin him down so he can't fight me anymore, right? And at that point, I have to cause him too much harm, right? So you will learn to basically take it from different extremes. Sometimes you want to subdue, and sometimes you want to just take it to the extreme, especially if weapons are involved, can be more severe.
Why were you holding his ear down?
So go back to the ground. It's easy, right? Okay, once I took him down, to avoid having to physically strike him, I just pinned him and put my knee on him so he kind of moved, try to get up.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I use it as a gentle way to restrain him and just limit his capacity to kind of fight around, right? Now, from here, later, like if they resist, and let's say he starts to get up, I might just roll him around, go the other way and pin him back down, And so you start learning to kind of go with the flow of their movement, which is a lot of the fun of what we do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, chokes. Chokes are also dangerous because obviously they can choke the life out of you, right? Or they can crush your windpipe or just generally hurt your neck, right? Different types of chokes might be like a front choke from the front, at which point, well, his hands are occupied. I've used both of mine, right? So I always tell people never grab with two hands when you're going to leave mine perfectly free to defend, So you might be behind me, choking like that, and I decide to use a striking method and hit him with my elbows, right? Or if I want to do more of a grappling technique, let's go this angle here, you can see a little better. I just want to grapple him when he does that weird choke. Then I might just kind of pull free and put on a lock, see? And at that point, I've got him to where if I want to, I can follow up with other strikes, right? Okay, and so in our Kempo system, we do both grappling and striking. We actually found it works best if you put them in conjunction. If you hit them, they're going to be more compliant for a takedown. Or you throw them down, they're more compliant for striking. Okay, so we've always, kind of done both at the same time. So Kempo Karate has a really unique flavor that way. Grabs can be, for example, you can grab my lapel or my shirt, right? We got techniques where you can break the arm and strike that. Okay, he can be grabbing my wrist, and I can put him in a lock. Right? Of course, I can follow up with my strikes if I want to. Okay. The next category is considered, oh yes.
Okay, you've mentioned
You
breaking
deserved
his
it, by the way.
arm several times. Where do you hit to break the arm?
Let's talk about that. Okay, this is one of our specialties, right? We call it stress and shock, right? So we always hyperextend joint by pulling it straight. In this case, I did it like this. So as I pull it, I put a lot of tension in the joint. I hit just past that elbow, and it's going to dislocate, see? Okay, but on top of that, I'm thinking, well, what if he tries to hit me? Fire away. See, I'm already in a position to block. I can cross him up and still finish my technique, right? And at any point in time he tries to strike, what's going to happen? I'm ready to intercept something, see? Okay, so just for fun, this technique is called lone lapel grab, okay? And it's essentially 3 counts. This would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 3. And so in consideration, I'm thinking, well, at any point in time, he might try to fire a punch, right? He wasn't trying to grab me to death, he was threatening me, right? Okay, so in the first move he punches, I can intercept it right in the first move. Okay? If he hesitates and I've injured him, and then he punches, I can actually knock it out in the second move and still finish, right? Otherwise, if he waits until the last moment to react, I can still knock it out with this hand and still finish, right? And so we tend to drill a lot of the what ifs. What if he punched it then, or he moved there? And that's where you start to get more flexible and more reactive with your movement, because you can't really script a fight, but you can just do a lot of training and stack the odds in your favor that way. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. We just realize there's other joints, right? If you can get a hold of their hand, the finger joints yield more easily, right? And so it kind of depends on the context. So let's say if you had grabbed me like in a bear hug type of method, right? I might just grab a finger here and try to rip that out, or headbutt him. So later we're going to have various degrees of striking, right? Yeah. And notice it's very quick when you trained at it, right? You wiping his finger joint and crushing his testicles and breaking his face with your head. But the bottom line is you're going to have methods control with both ways, but you also need to have training, right? I can show you guys the moves here today, but that doesn't mean when you walk out you're going to know how to do it, right? And I think unfortunately there's a lot of people who try to do very short-term seminars, like a 1-hour seminar or even a 6-week course. But if you don't make it a regular habit of practice, it won't become a muscle memory response. It'll become something that you can just do responsively just out of pure reaction, right? And then we have kicking, which is a little more dangerous because the legs have greater range, but they're also stronger, right? So if he tries to kick me, we're going to have defenses for that. I have to hit him with something more severe like an elbow strike, right? Notice what I did here, I kind of pin his hand because I don't want him to hit me, right? In Kempo, we specialize in what we call checking. Checking is the ability to kind of prevent them from attacking in the first place or to anticipate it, right? Now, can you hit me with your left hand? No, because I hit here, right? Now, if I try to hit you down here, you try to punch me above, that wouldn't have been as smart, right? So all the things are engineered very carefully in our particular system, A lot of people carry pocket knives, and so in modern day, we do a lot of defenses for knives, right? Now, a long time ago, you go to schools and they were teaching you to fight with nunchucks. And a lot of people wonder, why don't you guys teach nunchucks anymore? When was the last time you saw a rice farmer out there with nunchucks on his belt? Right? So the times changed, right? Okay, so basically we've adapted so that now we're working on the more modern threats. That's going to include things like, firearms and clubs and knives, right? Okay, so knives definitely, this is probably my worst nightmare. I always tell people I'd rather get shot with a gun than cut open with a knife, because when a knife hits you, it can tear through so much that you can't stop the bleeding, right? Okay, of course I can make it for some grisly storytelling. But a firearm, sometimes it'll shoot one hole in you and you might survive to make it to the hospital, right? So we take our knife defenses very seriously, and we try to talk about motion in general, right? So just as a key example, Mr. Pranders here realized that the range of motion was placed basically vertically up and down and from side to side like that, right? So I kind of conceptualize it like being like a little hemisphere of movement, right? If I stay under that hemisphere, he's less likely to catch me, right? So he does a knife blade thrust and I catch his elbow here, right? Can you turn the blade toward me? No, right? And then later I can break your heart, fall to something else, right? But the main thing is I can trap immediately, right? The bottom truth is people watch martial arts demos, they kind of see this move. They attack and they kind of wait to be beat up, right? But in the streets, most people, what do? They kind of jab it quickly. And so you'll learn to kind of catch and get to where you can respond before he retracts it, right? And if it misses and it bounces back, you're going to follow up quickly so you can pin it down, right? Knife fighting is something you have to do a lot of to get proficient. That's what we talked a bit about, the regular practice part. Knife defense takes more expertise, more time and practice to work against, right? But guns have the range advantage in the sense that if he starts farther away, there's no way I'm going to get at him in time before he can possibly shoot me, right? Okay, so when we do knife or gun defenses, what do we try to do? Hey man, I don't want any trouble. Yeah, compliance is okay, right? So if he just wants your wallet, give it to him, right? Okay, but if you're in a situation where they're fairly close or you feel like really their intent is more to cause you harm than to, say, rob you, then you have to react quickly and take it, right? And later we'll have techniques where we're going to take them down as well. So we have techniques where I immediately in the first move, what I do, I get that gun pointed out of the way and I fall up and hit him and take him down. At this point, I'll go as far as I have to go because this is a more serious threat, right? Okay, my feet.